Welcome again, you happy people. This video, or rather this topic, has in my thoughts for quite some time, but I believe now, as I start my new YouTube channel for and about gamers, I find myself increasingly hard to resist the urge and not become controversial right off the starting block. So here I go. The issue, as you have no doubt gleaned from the title, is the quality coming out from the vast majority of AAA studios. 3 years down the track of this generation's life cycle, I certainly don't chuck indie studios under the bus, and the rather large amount of AA companies, some of which have released games which truly up the ante and showing what can be done when the true power of these systems is fully harnessed. Remnant II is a recent example of such quality. Others include Hi-Fi Rush, Atomic Heart, Amnesia the Bunker, and F1 2023. My initial chin scratch over this issue began with the release of Dying Light 2 on consoles and its performance on PS5, but more specifically the Series X. Honestly, we can actually go back even further to Cyberpunk, but that absolute cluster F and insult to gamers both on PC and consoles deserves its own video. Increasingly, developers are segregating their releases into the quality or performance range of option. Very rarely do they have both. Now, may I say that 90% of the time the particular game features subpar qualities regarding the modes. In quality mode usually doesn't impress from a purely visual standpoint and doesn't even lock to 30 FPS. Increasingly, I have found that games requiring high-tech reflexes and an actual enjoyment of combat require a certain level of fluidity, especially when you're fighting in close quarters as frequently as you do in games such as Dead Space Remake and the Callisto Protocol. Speaking of Dead Space Remake, I find this game as one of the most egregious examples of this "wait, you can have this but not that" mentality of the devs on consoles. Having bought the first game on Series X, refunded it, and then bought the PlayStation version, or the PlayStation 5 version, I was absolutely aghast at the sheer drop in fidelity on performance mode that was on offer, especially when I refunded that game as well and finally went with the PC version. Now you may ask, why didn't you just buy the PC version instead? The simple answer is I wanted to sit my lazy butt down on the couch and enjoy it rather than sitting at a laptop or at a PC. Alas, it was not to be. Anyway, I realized that I could actually get the game free through my EA Pro subscription, which I did, and I was pleasantly surprised. Apart from the occasional frame stutter, which still continues to this day, the game looks and plays gorgeously on my i9 10850K with 64 megabytes of RAM and a 3080. I'm not playing the game at max settings or in 4K, but at 2060 by 1440. Frankly, I was floored at the level of detail and the general ambience the devs put into this game, just as a standard walking around and admiring the levels and the basic design of this game. Currently, this game on PC, along with Remnant II, are my tied Game of the Year contenders. Revenant II has its own issue, and two specific ones which almost made me refund the game a few hours in, but they eventually fixed it, and it appears the works are working their butts off, releasing patch after patch. Now that is commitment. That is something EA and Respawn and its rather abysmal release of Jedi Survivor and its continuing issues with the optimization of the games. They appear to be more interested in showboating Apex Legends months down the track of the release of Jedi Survivor rather than touching up and fixing this game. In fact, This year, apart from Dead Island 2 on PlayStation 5, which released not only well optimized but so far with zero crashes, as well as Resident Evil 4 Remake, again on PlayStation 5, are the only two standout third-party releases that have come out at the required standard on day one. I would also like to mention Diablo 4. I know, don't throw carrots at me. Despite its Season 1 and the whinging and hollering that came with it, and obviously the patch, which is well deserved, and which of course is getting rolled back in some areas, the game came out extremely polished, and currently I'm about 40 hours in, past level 50 and well into Act 3. I'm enjoying the game flawlessly with cross-play, progression and cross-saving across 3 devices: my Series X, my Asus Ally and my desktop PC. The sad thing, guys and gals, is that this situation has us to blame as much as the devs and the companies behind these systems. I mean, who forgot Aaron Greenberg's infamous tweet that the games will run at 4K 60 FPS at baseline before the release of the Series X? Doesn't he wish he had a time machine, hey? Sony too can eat cake. Cerny is certainly no tech genius, and the less said about this and the likes of Jim, quote, "I believe in generations, Ryan, the better." You can add the PlayStation 5 HDMI 2.1 issue, which is only able to, with its transfer speeds limited to 35 gigabytes per second compared to 40 with the Series X. Somehow that seemed to fly past Cerny's head. Of course, the less said, the better in regards to the lies sprouted and spread about the PlayStation 5 SSD, which apparently came to us through time and space by a Terminator from the 25th century. At last, I have realized, especially in my last 3 years of dealing with these topics and watching and reading YouTubers such as Young Air, Skill Up, Digital Foundry, as well as gaming institutions like IGN and GameSpot, that many of these issues are either glossed over or entirely omitted from their reviews or their presentations. This has happened on numerous occasions, and 2023 seems to be an absolutely epidemic in regards to this. So what exactly am I trying to say here? I've decided to put my foot down, and for the foreseeable future, if and when things improve, there will be no more third-party purchases for me on any console, no matter the publisher or dev. Or rather we, have been screwed over way too many times, and I've certainly let my laziness and giddiness with this hobby make me fall short at the principles I guide myself. And for goodness sake, for someone who has breached 40 years old, and for someone who's been playing since the age of 3 or 4, this is unacceptable. So I'm giving myself a bit of an uppercut and signaling to you guys to be more careful with your purchases. The recent issues with Redfall and the set it came out in is a primary example. Since then, we have heard many behind-the-scenes stories of wanting the game made or not made a certain way. Microsoft, at least, from their own words, saying they didn't know what was going on. And of course, the publisher executives demanding what they wanted from